The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
The Hogsty presents It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and Rich Rogers. And now, here's your host, Chris Larry.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's Just Business on the Hogsty Network, the show where we look at the dollars and cents of the sports industrial complex. Here on this evening, I'm joined by Rich and Steve. Salutations.
Hey, how's it going, guys? On this Monday night, part 2 and redo. So yes, how's it going?
Yeah, we're recording this in the middle of Monday Night Football, so I apologize to Chris and Rich for making us do this at this time. My humble apologies. I hope you guys can forgive me and you won't run away as a result of this time.
No, I'm here.
It's only the Steelers. I mean, come on, who cares?
Yes, it's football. That's all that we need.
So you missed a whole. You guys. Oh, they did a story on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the 70s and 80s, and they had a young Doug Williams lengthy interview. So that was really good tonight. I don't know if you saw it.
Doug Williams is my long-term goal to have as a guest on the Hogsty. Yeah. One of these days, I'm going to get Doug Williams on that show.
Yeah.
I may have to corner him in a parking lot or something, but it's going to happen one way or the other.
I was already a big Doug Williams fan from when he almost beat the Dallas Cowboys on a 4 o'clock game once. That's it. Put Doug Williams on the radar for me because he actually challenged them into the third quarter. All right, so enough old folks home type of stuff. We're going to jump into some current topics. Our first one could not be any more current. We're recording this Monday night after the triumphant return of supremacy of one Tiger Woods, as most people in the sports world spent the late Sunday afternoon time on Tiger Watch. Great sports story on many levels, but it does beg the question, will the Tiger effect come back, and will it be in time to save golf?
It's thoughts? Not a question. Yes, I have thoughts. Number one, the tournament on Sunday actually made me turn football off and watch golf for the first time I can ever remember during the football season. Yeah. But listen to this crazy stat, because it's not a matter of is Tiger gonna come back? Is the Tiger effect real? It's a matter. The answer is a definitive yes. The tournament this weekend was the Tour Championship. The ratings. Are you ready for this? The ratings were up 206%. Over last year, 206%, and that was overall. The number during peak time during the very end of the tournament was up to a 7 share, but it peaked at 7.19 at the very end when Tiger was clinching the tournament. I mean, that's NFL football level, folks. That's NFL. That's the equivalent. That's roughly in the ballpark of a Sunday afternoon NFL game.
Especially competing.
Yeah, competing. That's exactly right. It was competing with it. Unbelievable that and this is. Yes, it was a big tournament, but it wasn't a major. It was the final round of the FedEx Cup. But that boggled my mind. Up 206% over the same event last year. Yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, I'm not turning off football to watch golf. I don't care if Arnold Palmer or whoever comes back. I'm not watching golf over football, but it's intriguing. And I mean, does the NFL? I mean, we've had this conversation before. I mean, does the NFL have an issue now? I mean, can golf compete against go head to head with NFL?
Well, no, because, I mean, the bulk of the golf season is prior to the NFL season, so it's a non-event, basically. This is just the FedEx Cup. But let me throw some other numbers here at you guys. It didn't print. Well, that's all right. No, I have it. Here we go. Okay. Thought I had it in front of me. Okay. This is from Business Insider from 2014. It's the most current thing I could find here on this. But right before Tiger Woods came on to the PGA Tour in the mid '90s, the combined purse for the PGA Tour each season was about $70 million. Anybody want to take a guess at what the purse was in 2014, which was right at the end of Tiger's first period of excellence?
I'd say it was less than half.
It was $297 million.
Wow.
Meaning it had increased 400% in 18 years, roughly 18, 19 seasons. 400%. And I mean, that is directly attributable to Tiger Woods. You know, it's amazing to me the influence this guy's had on golf, on culture, on the sports marketplace. You know, he's been the face of Nike for going on 2 decades now. Going all the way back to the beginning. It's unbelievable what this guy has done for golf and the sports world in general.
I think that, I mean, you're right. And I think people love a good redemption story. I mean, people tear you down they build you up, tear you down, and build you up back again. I mean, Tiger Woods was at a low point. I still have the GQ magazine with him on the cover with that skull cap and just looking very dark and just a sad story. So, but he's great for golf. People love a great redemption story. I've heard local radio guys say, if Tiger ever won a major again, he's going to break Jack's record. So I think that's going to be the next thing with Tiger.
Well, actually, the next thing is actually, which I think just doubles down on everything Steve is saying and gives the media and the golf world a pretty big narrative, is that he's only now 2 wins away from winning more tournaments than anybody, right? Snead, he'll break that record. So he's actually within punching distance, not of necessarily that big record yet, but to be the all-time winningest pro golfer, and he only needs to win, I think, 1 more to tie, 2 more to take the record. That will be the watch that everyone starts now, and they'll use to drive interests, ratings, and probably a march back up to his endorsements as well.
Yeah, it's 2 to tie, by the way. He's at 80 and Snead is at 82. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the story all season next year.
That's any of these sort of smaller tournaments too that he picks up. It doesn't have to be a major.
That's the whole beauty of it, isn't it? Because you can have the Chick-fil-A Open, in the middle of Illinois, and that's how to market it. Tiger Woods is going to be there, and he may break Sam Snead's record at our course.
But here's the thing. It's like the other, I think, intriguing storyline is that Tiger's almost an old guy in golf now. I mean,
not
he's
almost.
Not. Yeah,
not
I mean,
almost.
he does. His peers are like Vijay Singh and
Phil Mickelson.
Those are his peers. I mean, you got young Dustin Johnson, and I mean, is he going to be able to keep pace with those young whippersnappers?
He dusted all of those guys in this tournament this weekend. Yeah. But that's the story, isn't it? Because really and truly, I mean, from a sports, and we're sports business here, but from purely a sports event, I mean, I don't think any of these young guys really if they were smart, they'd want no part of Tiger at his best. The guy was the most money dominant athlete I've ever seen in any sport, right on his peak. And that's why I think it's a perfect confluence of marketing in a bunch of different ways, because, when he came on, he was very charismatic. He came onto a sport that attracts a wide demographic. It attracts a bunch of old people. It attracts young people. It's not just, one, it's not like the UFC that's attracting a bunch of college kids. He was a minority, but he was so popular that nobody cared that he was a minority one way or another. His ethnic background transcended everything.
I mean,
it didn't matter.
I'd be interested to see. I mean, to your point with him being, he doesn't identify himself as African American, but
yeah,
as a minority, it would be interesting to see what golf club membership, what their numbers were in terms of joining up from let's say 2000 for the last maybe 20 years, and whether Tiger Woods had a big effect on that for minorities.
That's the next step. We'll have to. I don't have the data on that. That's a good question. What kind of effect did Tiger Woods have on minority kids? My guess is that they're probably still behind because the more there's a greater percentage of minorities who live in urban areas, or lower income, and golf ain't no lower income sport.
And I would say eight out of 10 of my friends play golf. I don't, but they play golf, and they weren't playing golf before Tiger Woods. So
was it because of Tiger that they?
And like I said, they weren't playing golf before Tiger Woods. I mean, we might have gone to the putt miniature golf course, but I'm talking about
real golf,
country club membership.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. But you got to think that the PGA Tour is just clicking their heels together right now, just drooling over the ratings next season. If this guy's going to be chasing Sam Snead's record all year, and then, think of what happens if he wins a major. What is going to happen if coming down the 18th fairway at Augusta, he's in the lead? I mean, it's going to be the biggest event on television, that for that week.
And it looks like it's not a fluke because he's been, he's, I think, got 8. I might be off a few, but he's got something like 8 top 10 finishes this year or something close.
He's been close.
So, he's been coming for a while, so this isn't just lightning strikes. That last back surgery seems to have really helped him turn the corner. So there's nothing. Sunday was sort of inevitable if you look at the last year for him. So there's nothing to say this can't kind of march right into next year's season. And I'm a little bit on the fence about what this means for his peers. In some ways, it could be a huge negative, like quick. Anyone name the golfer who won the FedEx Cup or whatever they call it yesterday, which is really what the big deal. That's actually what was supposed to be the big deal, but no one. You got to be a real golf nerd to be able to name it. I can't name him off the top of my head.
Justin Rose is who won it.
There you go. But at the same time, guys like Phil Mickelson and Singh, they were bigger stars because they played in that first Tiger era. And so there is a high tide lifts all boats phenomenon for some of these younger players who have been very solid, have been very good. Some of these guys have put up solid careers in golf the last couple of years, but their profile should rise now because of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think you're right. I mean, I think this isn't, Michael Jordan with the Wizards, and he may, light some team up one night, but we all know that, he's a shell of himself. I mean, you're right. Tiger did this all season. I think it bodes very well for PGA golf, for sure. we're going to have to check back in on this in the middle of next golf season to see what the ratings are, what's happened. What kind of money is coming in, because if you guys don't understand this, and I'm talking to the audience out there, the purses are come from the income, that they make on ad revenue, on TV rights, broadcast rights, the PGA Tour radio rights. That's where the purses come from. And so the size of the purses are directly relevant to the number of eyeballs and ears that are listening and watching this stuff. And that is driven directly by Tiger Woods. And so when you talk about the Tiger effect, that's what it is. I just wish he was a more likable guy, though. Yeah, I know. That's a whole other thing. I mean, he cheated on his wife. He did all these awful things. And, the porn stars. Yeah, I mean, I have a problem with that, too, for sure.
No, I don't necessarily have – well, no, I can't say I don't have a problem with that. But it's just, he's notoriously cheap. He's not. He's very, bristly. But to your point, not to get too much into the character thing. I mean, he's great for business. I mean, everybody loves a comeback story.
And I think he's been humbled, which will help him in that public image. I mean, this guy didn't just take he got knocked down between the sex scandals, the DUI, the multiple physical ailments, so he's going to have that. People like a comeback story, yes, and they especially like it when the person's been kicked to the gutter a ton. And this guy is definitely going to, no one's going to say he hasn't sort of paid his dues in what's happened since the beginning of the fall.
Yeah, I mean, it's a redemption story, is what it is. It's not just a comeback; it's a redemption. You know, because I do know people who to this day refuse to root for Tiger Woods because of his character issues. And if he's a more humble guy, more likable guy, and he starts winning, I think it's the comeback and it's redemption. And it just. By the way, I thought you guys didn't watch this, but I noticed it. I didn't know he had a girlfriend, but the girlfriend jumped out in the middle of the camera shot when he came off the 18th green, and grabbed him, kind of unexpectedly. And so, it struck me as like some girl saying, "I'm getting my moment of fame. I'm going to jump in when, millions of people are watching." It's pretty funny.
I'm Tiger Woods' girlfriend, and I'm going to make it about me.
That is exactly what it was. That's
why he should never have broken up with Peekaboo Street, because she had her own career.
No, it wasn't Peekaboo Street. It was.
Which one was it?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
The blonde skier.
Yeah, she broke her leg in the.
Lindsey Vonn.
Lindsey Vonn.
Yeah, Lindsey Vonn. Yeah. Yeah, because Lindsey Vonn would never have done that. But some random girl, yeah. But let's not get sexist about it. I just thought it was kind of funny. So, okay, anyway, so that's the Tiger effect. We wanted to address this. And,
quick piece of trivia. Tiger Woods has been in our cultural lives since 1978 when he first appeared on the Mike Douglas show to hit a putt with his dad. I mean, that's a long shelf life for somebody in this culture.
I mean, and I remember I've seen clips of that. It's before my time, but I've seen clips of that, and you could see the talent in the kid immediately. He was unbelievable at the club even then.
The Mike Douglas show was great. I mean, it was up there with Dick Cavett, but it might not quite Dick Cavett, but Mike Douglas was great. But anyway, yes.
How old are you guys?
Hey, man, I remember the Mike Douglas show.
I remember both those shows for sure.
Yes.
All right, so that's a good chance to turn the page and show how cutting edge and modern and hip we are.
We're talking about the Mike Douglas show. Oh, my God.
So we're going to get into more cutting edge media here and talk about the kind of fast rise of the sports media publication, website, empire, The Athletic, and really look at what are some really interesting things about their business model and what they're potentially doing to the sports media landscape. If you don't know, The Athletic is a website, essentially, that does both national sports coverage and has local market coverage as well. And so in many ways, they look and feel like a traditional newspaper website or sports website, but they operate more like a Netflix or an Uber, where they are looking for some entertainment activities that everyone enjoys and taking a radically different financing and business model with the express purpose of disrupting the media landscape as it exists. So the best example of that is that they are gobbling up talent on the national and local scale in sports journalists. This is not like don't pay your reporters at BuzzFeed or whatever. This is going out and paying top dollar for seasoned beat writers, columnists, and longtime sports journalism professionals. And there's people out there in Silicon Valley and in the venture capital world and the sports media world that says this is a coming behemoth. And their growth, even over the last couple months, is astonishing. They've gone from 2 years ago, 60 editorial staff, and I think 30 markets, to over 300 editorial staff with over 380 markets covered. That's growth, people.
What's interesting to me about this is that this is not a venture that was started by a major media outlet. This is not something Time Warner Cable, Time Warner dreamed up, or, Amazon is doing, or anything like that. These are two Silicon Valley guys. Do you have their names, Chris? What are their names?
No, I can find them as you go on.
Okay, all right. One of these guys is in his mid-30s. One of them's like 28, 29 years old. And they dreamed this up. And their business model is basically this. Newspapers are old and outdated. Nobody wants to read a newspaper anymore. And for those who do, may only want to read the sports page. And so what we want to do, we meaning these two guys, we want to become the local sports page for the 21st century. It's a really fascinating concept. And it's only a pay service, and they get away with this because they're marketing themselves as a digital newspaper, basically. And so they've gotten people to subscribe to this. Because,
like me.
Yeah, there you go. You're a subscriber. I'm not yet, but I probably will at some point. But what they're doing is, like in the case of Washington, D.C., which we follow closely, they have gobbled up a significant amount of the local beat writer staff, including our buddy Mark Bullock, who was just on the Hogstye last week. He's now at The Athletic, and he's not nearly the only one. It's interesting, and they've raised an enormous amount of money, as you said, Chris. They're up to like 3 rounds of venture capital financing now, I think, and they've raised like $30 million or more.
That's in the third. That $30 million was their third round. It's a little hard to find. Yeah, it's hard to find, but it looked like the first 2 rounds were in the 8 or 9, 5 to 6 round, and then the third one came in at 30. So I haven't been able to get the number exact, but they have raised safely over $35 million over 3 rounds, and that's being very conservative. And by the way, it's Alex Mather and Adam Hansman are the 2 founders. They came from a gaming app company.
Yeah, and they basically just dreamed up an idea, and it's just exploded on them. I mean, they must be the greatest marketers in the world. They have to be.
How much is a monthly subscription?
$5, and you can get when they come into a market like the DC one now that they've pumped up the DC presence. I think they were offering deals for a year that makes about $375.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So again, they're marketing it like at newspaper cost.
Yeah, right. It's a kind of a throwaway. And let me just go over some of the talent since we have a large DC sports fan base. David Aldridge, Tariq Al-Bashir, Grant Paulson, Chick Hernandez, Mark Bullock. Those are the top 5 that I'm coming off right off the top of my head. All very active, well-respected. Someone like David Aldridge, local, national, NBA, all sports. I mean, this is a guy who's been, kind of a leader in sports and, a name in sports journalism going on 25 years. And he's the DC editor now for them, as well as covering NBA National.
Jason Reed's not on there, is he?
No, he's with the Undefeated.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So that means you can read it, right?
Yes.
What's also interesting about this, and Chris, you brought up this a little bit off air, but these guys have not been nice about this in any way, shape, or form. I mean, there was the article I read, they were talking about basically being vultures and preying on the dying newspapers.
Especially local, yeah.
Yeah, they're just arrogantly coming in and steamrolling through all these local markets. So my guess is that the traditional newspapers probably hate these guys.
There's a couple local newsrooms and papers. I think one, Colorado, one in Arizona, or maybe it was New Mexico, where they basically decimated the paper went to having almost down to interns, basically. I mean, just raided the entire thing. And if you look at what they're doing, a couple of real comparables are, one, what Craigslist did to want ads and listings in a newspaper, which were a huge fiscal lifeline for newspapers. So you can see, they are not shy about this. This is not just like, hey, we think this is interesting sports journalism, like something like Grantland or The Ringer or The Undefeated or these other ones, that are doing similar things in terms of the quality of the writing. No, they're doing that, but they're attacking what they think are the weak and the old and the herd. This is predatory.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, they don't do ads, and so this is this is why this could blow up in their face, because they've raised a ton of money, they owe a ton of money, they're spending a ton of money, but at the end of the day, if they don't get a lot of people paying for this quickly, they could be in trouble. No, I think it's done fairly well. It's very young. Well, this is only a few months old, right? I mean, less than a year.
2 years. But, 2 years, but that first year was, deep
Nothing.
incubation.
Yeah, right. And so, they've only been in the public consciousness for really 2018 probably, and late 2017 maybe. I don't know if they're at the point yet. They're still at the early growth stage, and I don't really know if they're at the point at which this is succeeding yet. These guys are taking a gigantic risk, I think.
Yeah. I was in the 7-Eleven the other day, and I just stared at a newspaper, and it just looked ancient.
Sad?
It looked sad. It really did. I mean, I was like, they still sell these?
Do either one of you subscribe to a home newspaper?
The Post. Oh, you mean in terms of like a hard copy, like the
you get
on
a
your front
newspaper
step?
at your
No,
door.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Chris,
I mean, I have the New York Times weekend, so I get the weekend delivered to the home, and that gives digital access. And I would cancel it in a second, but my wife likes it to have it, so that's the closest I've got.
Okay, so you have a weekend subscription. I haven't subscribed to a newspaper in at least 10 years. It just, I think, I mean, The Athletic is kind of on the cutting edge in a way. They're not nearly the only online sports, outlet, obviously, but they're kind of following the ESPN model because ESPN is sort of trying this, but on a smaller level. ESPN has got ESPN Washington, ESPN Chicago, ESPN Dallas. There's a bunch of local ESPN pages, and they poached local writers. They just didn't do it this aggressively and this kind of widespread, damn the torpedoes kind of, attitude that The Athletic has done it. So it's I really think they're going to get to the point where they're going to be competing with ESPN.com more than anything, honestly.
Oh, I think so. I think that's who they'd be going after, at least for content and eyeballs. And it's really funny because Netflix is one of the most obvious models for them. And, as well, I don't know if many people know, Netflix started off by sending you physical discs through the mail. So, and also, who knows where eventually their business model ends up. And I've already heard people start to say that the logical extension for them will be eventually, especially if they can continue to raise money, will get into the streaming live events. And so, like, are they able to raise enough and get enough momentum to be where something like that is their ultimate goal? Because no one thought Netflix would be the world's leader in streaming content when you were sending the red envelopes back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously The Athletic is nowhere near that now, but if you fast forward, half a decade, say, I don't think they're going to win the NFL contract necessarily, but could they get more eyeballs by streaming something, and then they kind of build it up, and then long term, you could see them becoming, if it goes well for them, becoming Netflix or Amazon, online.
But
I'll tell you what, as bad as these studio shows are for the NFL, there's a market there. The studio shows across the board are unwatchable.
And
Yes.
and Rich, what is the worst thing about it? Say it again. You said it on the last show. You remember?
of the studio shows,
Yeah. Michael Irvin's Irvin's suit.
his they should not allow a person to dress that way on television. And he's a clown. He has a clown suit on every week. So yeah, they are pretty unwatchable. I have to say, this is the local Redskins team coverage has actually stepped up in terms of shows and the type of studio shows. They have gotten a lot of ex-Redskins athletes involved in local media, in radio, TV. They do a lot of really good stuff here. So
The question really, I mean, with that, idea, Rich, is can the Athletic get to the point where they will get Rich Rogers to turn that off and go to the Athletic on Sunday morning?
yeah, I would, because you're
That's
right.
the
The shows are unwatchable. You see, the problem is that, and this is to the point, these guys, some of these guys on these shows have jobs forever. Like Bradshaw's been there forever.
30 years?
Yeah, ESPN finally, did something with
Chris
Berman.
Mortensen.
Berman, and
yeah.
they shook that up. I mean, so I applaud them for that, but you're right. It's ego driven. It's okay, who's going to be the colorful clown to dress up like a peacock this week? There's very little in depth analysis. So
well, Chris, let me ask you this: since you're the subscriber here, what is the quality of the writing on the Athletic?
It's pretty
worthwhile?
good. Yeah, it's worthwhile. I mean, it's like your newspaper beat reporter level, and so if you're interested in the topic, you'll read. And I like those writers a lot. I followed like Tariq through Redskins and Capitals coverage going back 15 years. I really like Grant Paulson. So I think, I can't speak to obviously other local markets as much, but those are people I have followed across multiple jobs and multiple media programs, or media platforms now, through multiple stops. So that got David Aldridge as well. So that got my attention. It's quite good. They do this little thing where you can, when you go to a bathroom and you're like, you can do the smiley face or the red mad face about its cleanliness in like airports and stuff like that. They have that at the bottom of each story. That's how they're collecting, like, was this, good, bad, or meh? And so, they want that kind of engagement. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're watching, a Grant Paulson or Kevin Sheehan type of show, either video or audio on Athletic DC within a year.
Well, that's and first of all, we know that their writing quality isn't up to the level of the Hogstye, but clearly it's good. No, that's what I was wondering, Chris. Exactly, that's what I was brought up earlier. Is what's the next step? Which, as you said, who could have dreamed what Netflix became? It was a crappy little video delivery service, and now it's a monster. In the Athletic, they've got a long way to go. They have a long way to go, and they need to build up a core audience or core, subscriber base that I don't know. Do we have any idea how many subscribers they have?
There's some debate on that, and they're like Netflix in their ratings. Basically, you don't know; it's all black boxed. But they put it at 100,000 as maybe the floor right now, and then people with a more have either invested in it in some way or repping it say it's in the 10 times that. So it's somewhere between 100 and 500,000 is their subscriber base. I would guess.
Okay, and even if it's 500,000, it's nowhere near enough to have them win like a major NFL media contract. Say,
no,
it would have to grow a lot tenfold before they would even be in the ballpark. At that. So they've got a ways to go, but it's very interesting. And what I'm really interested in to see is, if we talk about this 10 years from now, will the Athletic have just run roughshod over local sports? Is that going to be the monster that we're all talking about in this source that we all go to 10 years from now? Who knows? Open question.
Yeah.
We will be following it, and I'm sure they'll have some more celebrity-style hires here over the next even 6 months. They just today, we're talking on Monday, released 5 new cities for NBA local coverage. So they kind of have press releases going out on the weekly.
Yeah, they're doing this really fast. I mean, a lot of these cities, they don't have editors, yet they're just hiring people left and right. I mean, it's really kind of going on off a, fly by the seat of their pants type of thing right now. So they're definitely in a huge growth mode, but I know for a fact that they don't even have local editors in place yet, and they're hiring people, despite they're having to fill in gaps and bring in temporary people, and they're just going all out right now.
Well, we will continue to watch, but we're going to move on to our third and final story of this episode, and that is this wacky, no one knows where it came from, Eric Dickerson letter where who knows what he was fighting for exactly, but for at least a couple days he became the face and then kind of the scapegoat for veteran player benefits, health, and pensions and otherwise. So, Steve, I know you were looking at kind of the legal 1, 2, 3 about how this played out. You want to give us an update?
Sure, yeah. And Rich and I had a healthy disagreement about this, I think, at first, off the air when this came about. What happened here is this. Early last week, Eric Dickerson, led the charge, but a letter was sent, purportedly signed by a whole host of NFL Hall of Fame players. And the original news, that the original way it broke, was that the letter was sent to the Pro Football Hall of Fame that said, we are going to boycott next year's Pro Football Hall of Fame ceremony if you don't pay us each a salary of $300,000 a year and give us free medical benefits. And my first thought was, good God, how selfish. How selfish. And then my second thought was, this guy's a moron because he's writing the Hall of Fame about this. And Hall of Fame can't do anything. He should be writing the NFL. And as the story kind of trickled out, as it turns out, what actually happened is that the letter was addressed to the NFL, the NFLPA, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And so that's at least a tad more logical. But I found morally reprehensible the idea that the Pro Football Hall of Famers were just advocating for themselves and not for all of the retired NFL players, who many of whom certainly could use help, and they all certainly deserve better medical care. So after he got pummeled in the media over this for a day or two, Dickerson then went on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, and then he later did a print interview with, I think it was Jason Reed, Rich's buddy Jason Reed, for The Undefeated. And what he explained, his explanation for all this, was that what they really wanted was benefits for everybody, but they started with the Hall of Famers because it was, in his words, easier to get the Hall of Famers these benefits first. And if you buy that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you. I think this is a case more of just this being amateur hour in terms of advocacy, more so than these guys are just purely selfish. Like, for example, they were asking for a salary when really what they're talking about is a pension, which is not a salary. A pension is different. So I think that it was just a complete amateur operation. They didn't even have the concurrence of all the Hall of Famers' names that were on the letter. Kurt Warner came out publicly and said, I never agreed to this. Jerry Rice said he never agreed to that. So it was an insane thing born partly out of greed. And at some level deep down, I think they probably wanted to do the right thing, but they went about it the completely the wrong way. Thoughts?
Well, Chris, is Eric Dickerson one of your favorite football players of all time?
You know the answer to that.
He is most certainly not my. He is one of my least favorite football players of all time. This I have never seen. He's in a rarefied air of those athletes who always shrink in big spots. This guy is great. He's a compiler. He's great in meaningless games. He never won anything. But this isn't a football. This is not a football show where we, debating. This isn't like the NFL Network's top 10 or something like that. So
thank God, because he just told the public that one of the greatest running backs in NFL history was average.
He was a compiler. That's a difference.
I don't know. 2,000 yards a season ain't compiling, man. I'm telling you. Go ahead.
Did they even make the wild card that year? I don't think so. They maybe were a wild card team.
He was a part of the getting SMU the death penalty, so there's that.
Exactly. Thank you. I forgot about that.
So we got to ask him what
with his gold Trans Am.
Yeah.
What was his salary
his
salary at SMU? How about that?
Yeah, exactly. But what's relevant here is I want to remind everyone that there was a time where Eric Dickerson could have taken a solidarity stance and fought for future benefits of players in their retired age, and that would have been the 87 lockout, where he was actually a scab and he crossed the picket line, and he was one of the biggest stars at the time to do so, completely capsizing the union, something that they actually have not recovered from, and they lost ground on those kind of benefits starting there. So I find this deeply disingenuous coming from Eric Dickerson. And maybe we shouldn't always hold things that happened that far in the past against someone, but that seems pretty on point. I can draw a line from A to B here. So he's not a guy that I really self-appointed union with no union later. I think it did nothing but actually, in the end, probably hurt those legitimate causes.
I think it made him look like a fool.
Yeah,
number one.
Union people don't forget stuff like that. Like true union people don't forget stuff like that. I know you're pro management, Steve, but
yeah, I mean nobody's going to accuse me of supporting unions, but I do find the cause of better benefits for retired NFL players to be a noble cause. Worthwhile, they sacrifice their bodies. The NFL's making money hand over fist, and there's no reason why I don't know if the economics of free healthcare for everybody. I read a stat that argued it would cost $1 billion a year, to do that. So that's probably not going to happen. But better benefits, something I'm all for it. For them, I think they deserve it. But the idea that Eric Dickerson is the guy. I mean, to a certain extent, I don't harbor the same negative feelings about Eric Dickerson that Chris does, but I don't think he's very smart, and I think he went about this completely the wrong way. And the idea of telling the world, well, we're going to do this for Hall of Famers first because it's easier to get it for us, that just makes him look like a complete fool. It really does. And the idea of asking for a salary makes him look like a complete fool because if word one about business, that a salary is something that is paid to an employee. They're not employees. A pension is something that is a pension plan that is the company-sponsored pension plan that you pay into, and then you get benefits out at the end. That's what they're talking about, and he just didn't know how to say it. They really needed an attorney or a PR guy to do this for him. And this struck me as something like Eric Dickerson sitting in his kitchen and had an epiphany, and that's kind of where this came from. So I do think they probably hurt themselves more than helped themselves with this.
I think this will be a non-story next week.
Yes, exactly right. Hey, and I think next year all these guys are going to be at the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Well, or it looks like maybe Terrell Owens may have started something. I don't know.
Honestly, I mean, if I was a Pro Football Hall of Fame, I would go, okay, don't show up. I dare you, don't show up. What's going to happen? So.
Well, they also have no power, as you said. It's like showing up. That's like showing up to not eat your retirement cake. It doesn't, like
who cares?
They can't. Yeah, they can't do anything for you. And they're going to be bummed if some people stop coming to the award ceremony. But they have literally no power.
Yeah, people are gonna. That thing is televised, and it gets decent ratings because the fans of the teams want to see their guys go in. They don't really care about the guys, the old men in old gold jackets sitting in the back. Nobody cares. 0 people care. The last one I watched seriously was probably the Art Monk and the Darryl Green year. Yeah, I didn't notice who was sitting in the back, nor do I care who was sitting in the back. I wanted to see Art Monk speak. So it's ridiculous. The whole thing is just absurd.
And I think, and just not to get too deep in the Hall of Fame discussion, I think that's where the NFL makes their mistake with guys that should be there, but they make them wait. I mean, like, nobody knows. You cannot name, other than a Redskins fan, no one knows Chris Hanberger. I mean, you know what I mean? Nobody, like, okay, who's that guy? I mean, he was one of the best linebackers. I mean, but nobody would know that. It's all about the either the first ballot or guys, this may be their second or third time. After like the fifth or sixth year of eligibility, nobody remembers who these guys are.
Can I tell you my Chris Hanberger story? And it's actually relevant to this. Because what we're talking about here is people need better benefits. Now, Chris Hanberger, as I know, as Chris and Rich know, but the audience may not know, Chris Hanberger is one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history. And he just recently elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Well, go back to maybe 1996. I was sitting in the Upper Marlboro, Maryland Ford dealership waiting on my car to get an oil change. And what do I hear over the loudspeaker? Chris Hanberger, you have a phone call over the loudspeaker. And I went, oh my God, Chris Hanberger's here. Well, it turns out he was a car salesman.
Yes, he was.
Nothing wrong with that. He's earning a living for his family. I disparage him in no way for that. I was glad to hear that he's making a living. My point with that is that this is one of the greatest players in NFL history who had to work at a relatively normal job. Now I think the NFL can do a little bit better for especially guys like Chris Hanberger. So, I mean, again, God bless him for working. Don't disparage him at all. But that's an example. These guys become normal people, when their playing career is over. And so the idea of getting them better benefits is definitely a good thing. But just if you're on this train, don't make Eric Dickerson the captain of the train. I think that's a good moral of the story. And I know Chris must agree with me.
Yeah, just like you would not, if you were looking to go to the Super Bowl and win it, you would not have Eric Dickerson as your running back.
Oh, I would have Eric Dickerson my running back in a split second on my Super Bowl team.
Just talk to the Rams and the Colts, I guess.
We might have to disagree on that one, Chris.
Yeah, he is not my favorite 80s, 90s running back. That is
he
for
certainly
sure.
ran straight up. I'll give him that much.
Yeah, those stupid goggles. Oh, drives me freaking bananas.
This is just, it's so random that Chris Larry hates Eric Dickerson, of all people. I mean, what did Eric Dickerson ever do to you?
It's just, you're one of those guys when you're like kind of a kid or a teenager that you watch that much football and he just rubs you the wrong way. I just never groove with the guy.
I just think it's funny. That's all. It's a long time ago. The grudge is held all these years.
All right, I think with my grudge match, we can get out on that one. Rich, where can people find you to chat Redskins football on Twitter?
They can find me at DiscoQ5, DiscoQue5 on Twitter.
All right, and Steve, you are occasionally, or no one knows when, running the Hogsty Twitter handle, correct?
Yes, if you are trying to find me, you can find me at the Hogsty on Twitter. If you want to email us, you can email us at thehogsty@gmail.com. If you can get IJB, It's Just Business show stuff to us at that email address.
And you can find me at ChrisLarry33. And with that brings us to a close of another episode of It's Just Business. We will see you in 2 weeks' time.
All right, guys. Have a great one.